Welcome back for episode 6 of Sister Moms. The title of this episode is Work, 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 Work. And we're talking about what it is to be a working mom after you have a baby, especially after that first baby, that experience of going back to work. And now we're in a pandemic. So what those decisions looks like in real time.
Right.
Before we jump into the discussion, I want to ask Janisha, how have you been since our last episode?
Well, last episode we talked about my book.
Yes.
And so I've been in this space of like, oh, this is so new. How do I keep it going? You know, just kind of some of that new entrepreneurship type of mind and thought. And then weather-wise, this weather has been crazy. It's been snowing all over the country. And it's kind of crazy. So I'm having to watch the weather every day. What about you?
This week has been a roller coaster, just like most others. But like I said on the last episode, I was like daycare shopping and I said I was done. And then I made another appointment to go visit one more. I was like, okay, this is the first one I saw. And so I really want to go to this one. I thought it was, I didn't think it was open yet. So I didn't really put much thought into it. And so I was like, oh, I drove past it when I was driving, trying to put Deanna to sleep in the car. And so I asked for an interview. I was like, I'm just going. I know I'm not sending her to daycare or anything. I'm just going to go see it. I went and it was amazing.
Girl.
So I'm back to confusion, but also it's like expensive. So I'm settled in it that she can't go right now because it was ridiculous, the cost.
And her expensive, y'all, depending on what part of the country you live in. Because her expensive is like the least you gonna find for a daycare around here in the DMV area. So
That's funny because you didn't say that when I told you, I guess. It's just relative. You're right. Because when I was thinking about like the first daycare we sent her, it's like half the amount. And that was high for that area. So you're right. It's definitely a regional thing. But yeah.
cool. Well, the idea, everyone, if you don't know, we used to do Facebook Lives. And in Facebook Live, we talked about our experience. Well, Shelley's experience going back to work, because I was still living with Shelley at the time, actually, and I hadn't gone back yet. So she was sharing her experience. And both of our lives are totally different, just like anybody else's lives as of 2 years ago, because of the pandemic. So I thought like we should still, even though it's not the same, we can't repeat the same conversation. It'll still be a great topic to discuss. And again, like a mark in history, when we go back and listen to this, like, oh my goodness, like that's what life was like. So I kind of wanted Shelley to first start off again. And for those of you who don't know, last year, Shelley was teaching middle school math, and during her time teaching is when the pandemic started, and her life has transitioned since then. So I kind of wanted her to talk about like, what did that look like when the pandemic hit while you were still teaching, and just kind of how that got you to where you are today.
Okay. So pandemic hit. Well, when we got word was around like March. So it was pretty drastic. We got out of school pretty fast. They were like, we got to go home. And I had the opportunity to go to my parents in a different state. And while I was there, I still was working, helping the kids online and things like that. I don't think I left from home until the school year was actually over.
Yeah.
I didn't leave. But the summertime is when, of course, we're talking about what we're going to do for next school year. So the school district, was going back and forth about decision making, but ultimately they decided that the students would not physically go back to school, but they wanted the teachers to go back to the building to teach from the classroom. And I was hoping that I wouldn't have to go back. When they made the decision that the students weren't going to be in school, it's like, oh, okay, I can teach them anywhere. That way I can still keep my daughter, or at least keep her around family. But to find someone to watch her every day so that I could virtually teach students was, to me, it didn't make a lot of sense. I'm sure there was a lot behind the decision. I respect the school district's decisions, but for me, I had to make a decision that was best for me. You were there. You were on the phone. back and forth process of like, oh my goodness, like I've been teaching here for 6 years. If I could teach virtually, I would absolutely do that.
Right.
And when I ultimately thought about it, I'm like, I'm not sending her to someone else ever. Well, one, she's not going back to daycare. There was already germy enough before COVID. I've like had to take her out. But once COVID hit, I was like, there's no way, because then I'm gonna have to like be extra cautious. And it's just, life was hard enough. And so I made the decision, the very difficult decision, to decide to not go back to school for the upcoming school year. And so currently I am not a teacher anymore.
Wow. How
Yes.
crazy does that seem to say that?
It's weird. Like, you don't think about how you identify yourself by your job or your career, but you do. Like, I could easily say, I'm a teacher. I'm a teacher. Now when people say, if someone say, who are you? I'm like, I'm Shelly. So it was a struggle at first, but I'm a stay-at-home mom, I guess.
Right. Okay, that's cool.
Did you want to share like yours, or before you had another question for me? Like, how did things for you?
I think you kind of went through it, but I just was thinking about, I know you kind of like, this is the experience that happened, but can you talk just a little bit about how you like kind of the struggle in making the choice, right? Like, I feel like even without the pandemic, we all go through life where there's big choices that we have to make, and it's not that easy. Especially something like that, like that was your whole job that you had to give up. So, I kind of remember the experience of like, I called them and I decided I'm not going to do it. And then they're like, no, you were like, okay, well, they said, you was like, I'm not going to do this if they're making us go back to school. Then they're like, oh no, y'all can stay home. So you're like, okay, fine. Then they're like, oh no, you got to go back. You're like, I quit again. Like,
oh yeah, I remember that. Oh, that was crazy. So I finally made a decision. I drafted the email that I was sending to my boss, to my principal and assistant principal. I called the woman who ultimately got me helped me get my foot in the door to get the job, because I wasn't certified in that state yet. Just to let them, like, I appreciate everything you all have done. Before I send this email, I just wanted to talk to you verbally because you guys have done so much for me. So I finally was like, okay, I quit. An hour later, actually, my therapist texted me and said, did you see the news about the school district? I'm like, no. She's like, you don't have to physically go back to the classroom. I'm like, I just quit. So I was like, oh my gosh. Like, then I wrestled back and forth. I'm like, was this a good decision? And so when I contacted my assistant principal again, I said, well, you know what? Now that we're going virtual, per that email I got an hour after quitting, I can return. And she said, well, actually, I'm not sure about, what that schedule is going to look like for teachers. So I said, well, I unquit. I don't know if that's a word. I unresigned, whatever it is. And then when they made the final decision to say teachers have to physically be in the classroom every day, but students are going to be at home, I had to think about Deanna. I had to think about our household. And I was like, this not going to work. So then I called back and I said, I requit. She's super cool. So the conversation is not what you think.
Right.
But she's just like, I absolutely understand. If I had a kid at your age, especially like the amount of times I've had to take her to the hospital, and at this point, I had no days, no more sick days, no more. I had nothing. I had depleted all of those days. So if there was a COVID scare at her daycare or at my school, I would have to take off. And then, well, there were protocols set in place, but I would still have to borrow some other days from the sick leave bank. And that's just, at this point, I've done that enough.
Right.
So yeah.
Yes. So yeah, that was really what I wanted to just kind of, I want you to like really go through, like, it's not just, oh, I made a decision. Like, it was like back and forth, and like, it was a struggle.
It was crazy.
Yeah.
But
okay.
How did it look for you? Like, we go back to work as new moms, and then COVID hits, and you're like, wait, I got to readjust again. So what was that readjustment for you?
Okay. So, a reminder, if people know or don't know, I was living with Shelly until Imani was about 3 months. And then I moved back to Virginia. When I moved back to Virginia, my family's all down south, right? So I didn't have like any of my blood relatives here. So I moved back. So I was here for almost a year to the T, right? Because March is when I started work. And then March is when the pandemic hit, right? So for the year that I'm at work, y'all, I'm trying to figure out how can I change my schedule? Like, y'all, I had a mentor that I would go to. She was like my mommy mentor. And so she would help me come up with proposals like, okay, go to your boss and ask him, can you take 2 days of telework as opposed to just one, just kind of figure out ways to make my schedule work for being a new mom. And, I lived almost an hour from work. So I was commuting 2 hours out of the day. And so it was like I had no time. When we got home, all right, eat, bathe, go to sleep. There's no quality time, any of that. So I was really struggling. And I was honestly considering doing something different. Like, okay, I'm gonna give it a year or so, because I was like, okay, summertime. So like I was gonna give it like 15 months. I was like, summertime, if nothing gives, I might have to look at something different. And lo and behold, the pandemic. But it was two things, y'all, not just the pandemic, but at work, it was so crazy. I came back to work only because I felt like I owed it to them, because he allowed me to work from home for all that time. And so I get back to work, and then they say, we are divesting of the program that you work for. So so you're going to have to do some different work. I'm like, what? Are you serious? And so, God, y'all, like, I was presented with an opportunity. They're like, all right, Jonisha, we're getting rid of the program, but we can get you on with this. We can see if we can get you on with, this other company. You could do the same work. And the perk of that was you work remotely. All you have to do is come to work once a week if you live here. And if you want to relocate, you can, and we'll work with you through that. I was like, what? And we're going to pay you more money. What?
I remember. Like, God, can you send angels down to me? Like, I'm ready for that call.
I was in disbelief, y'all. Like, you're going to pay me more money. You're going to let me work from home 4 days out of the week. I can live wherever I want. Like, I'm doing the same work that I was already doing. And so, with that in mind, I'm like, okay, I'm going to do it. So the pandemic hit in March. April, I was starting a new job. So once I started my new job, so it was kind of like I don't know if catch 22 is the right word, but like, okay, now I can work from home because I have a job that allows me to work from home. But the pandemic hit. So if I was at my last job, I still would have been working from home, but I'm making more money. So
That part.
and so even just for moms, like even when I was transitioning, because I didn't have to leave, I had a good job. I could have just worked a different project. Just in negotiating, like, I'm a new mom. This is where my life is. I want to go down to part-time at some point because I want to be able to spend that time with her. Would you all allow me to do that? Relocation. I don't live near my family. If there's an opportunity for me to go back and live closer to my family, would you all entertain that idea? So I went in like, I have nothing to lose because I already have a job. So just try to negotiate and see how they'll work with you. And I negotiated everything, and I got pretty much mostly what I asked for. So with that, then I'm home 24/7 with a 2-year-old.
2 years.
Was she 2 yet? No, 1-year-old, 1.5-year-old.
Mhm.
And so I'm like, okay, thank you, Lord. This is what I've been praying for. I get to see you all day, every day.
Ooh.
We'll talk in a future episode about asking for help. But let me tell you, the lady I live with right now, we tag team. She's like a grandma to Imani. We tag team. She's like, all right, Jonisha, you gonna have her for this time. Then you can take a break, and I'll keep it for this time. Like, I had to allow people to help me. And so it was, my mindset helped because it's like, all right, this is what you prayed for. Enjoy it. So that's how I really started off. Like, I'm going to enjoy it and make the best of this. decision that I've made, and not just decision, is the world, because the pandemic. But it was tough. And so I'll segue to the next question. I'll ask you and then I'll respond. Now that you've had both experiences where you work full time with a baby at home, a newer baby at home, and then now you're a stay at home mom, if you had a chance to do it again, what's the like little magic number you think? How long would you want her? Would you want to stay at home with her? Like what would that look like?
Honestly, that's so tough because, like you said, we get all this time now with our children, and like, this is what I asked for. I wanted more quality time. I wanted to be there as she's growing up. And I don't have to like prep lunch and prep this and prepare it. We just wake up and we do it. But oh my goodness, this ain't no game. And I think also, I'm gonna put a disclaimer in there before I answer, is that anyone that's feeling bad, especially like me, like where I'm like, I'm tired of her, she gone somewhere. It's not the same. It's not the same, especially if you're like, you're taking quarantine seriously and you're not letting them go anywhere and you have them all the time. That's
Right,
different. If you don't have options to send them places, safe options, that is not stay-at-home parenting. That's
right.
quarantine parenting. You don't really grocery shop. Some people don't, are more lax, but it's not the same. But if I could do it again from birth and I know go in knowing what I know now,
Yes.
I would stay home longer, especially if I'm nursing her. And especially if my milk supply was low like it was. That was crazy. Why did I? Anyway, I would stay at home longer, um, just so I can continue to bond. But I would still plug in those pieces of help. Like my mother-in-law was everything and is everything. Like she's so helpful. She used to come over every day. And so I would still, hope she can come over consistently because everybody needs a break. So I'm not saying I want to be with my baby all the time. I want to be with anybody all the time.
Shelly is Miss Introvert.
Super introvert. I like to be by myself with myself. That's it. So I would stay home. I think 6 months. 6 months is kind of long. So maybe 4. But and if I had a magic wand, I would transition into work. I wouldn't be able to jump back into work. It'd be nice if I'm like, as a teacher, you can't say, can I work part-time? But can I not join any club, not be over any departments, any clubs, anything extracurricular? I literally come in here and that's what I do. I teach and I put forth my best effort. But if I could do it all over, I would probably, and we had the funds, I would probably consider part-time work in general. Like if it was like I didn't have a career at that point, or I had an option to go back part-time, I think moms need to transition back into the real world. I think that there's a trauma that comes with all of becoming a parent, taking on a new label overnight, being a working mom and adding multiple titles and thinking that you're superwoman and can do it all. It would be nice to have an ease in. So I hope that answers your question. But if I didn't make it clear, I don't want to stay at home with her all day.
Yes, you answered my question. I think what I got from your answer was 4 to 6 months, maybe. But a transition back into work and even going back because of all that it takes in being a mom, you would prefer to be able to work part-time.
Yes, for sure. How I would do that, I don't know. But in my dream world, you let me fantasize and dream. That's my dream world.
Okay.
So if I ask you the same question, what would be your experience?
So very similar answer. I would say it 6 months at the least, probably. I Like you, I recognize the importance of needing help. I don't just want to be in the house with the doors closed by myself for 6 months. Um, Also, I will be married next time. We need to partner this thing up. But like you, I don't, I wouldn't want to just like go right back into full-time work. But ideally, magic wand, perfect world, I want to work for myself. So I have that flexibility of my schedule, and I can kind of choose how much, how little, how lot I want to do. Um, So yeah, I think we're very similar, and I think most moms will probably feel like that. Like keep them home for a few months. Some moms want to be home forever, but that's not us. But other moms, they're like, I want to have some bonding time, but I still want help, and I need some sense of normalcy. So I want to go back to, if we're already working, go back to work, but not full time immediately. So
I feel you. And I had this conversation with my mom, or our mom. We say my mom, but about, she's like, this generation, that y'all's generation, y'all don't want to work for nobody. I'm like, no. The fact that other people can dictate how much time you spend with your family, it really it forces you to reshape your values almost. And it's like, that's not okay.
right.
Especially if you're working to make somebody else rich. That's cray cray. But I get that you don't have to do what you have to do. I'm not saying you're crazy, but to think that a job that is helping you pay your bills dictates everything about your life. If you get to spend Christmases, or I just think that's it. I wouldn't have started this way prior to having a child, but now that I have one, I'm like, I'm gonna spend all the time with my baby. Or if she needs me to be somewhere, I'm gonna be there. Deuces.
Right.
Nothing is gonna come between that.
Right. Yes.
Future
And
employees don't
don't go quitting your jobs. Okay. But also it's important to know the values of the company or the people that you work for, because like me, I was depressed. I was in therapy. I needed help. And my boss is very much a family man. So he was like, yes, you can go and be with your family because you can do great work if you're in this place, and what you're doing right now, you can do from home. So go ahead. And I think it's just so crazy because it's like he made accommodations for me. And then a year later, it's the norm. Like, yeah.
That's huge. I want to throw that in there, that it is important to know you just go in there with more intentionality when you go to interviews and stuff. Before, I would be like, I'm just going to be whoever they need me to be.
Right.
Now in an interview, I already have a list of questions. Right. Who planning all these lessons all the time? Because it's not gonna be me all the time. But my principal was awesome as well. He would be like, you need to go home. Go home. He will always do that. Or if your daughter's at the hospital, why are you here?
Right.
You can't play those games. So it is so important, because if you work for someone that doesn't understand that, you're likely going to be begging for them to align with your values, and that's not going to happen.
Right. That's good. Okay. Well, I think that we covered a lot of ground with that. I think you did a great job of just kind of bringing up some of the questions, thoughts, issues as it relates to being a mom, or even we won't say just moms because we're not men, so we can't say what dads feel like, but being a parent and transitioning back into the real world, and what works for everybody is not the same. So we're always in this place of like, do what's best for you. You have to figure out what that is. Sometimes there may be experiences that help you to realize what that best is, but don't allow society, don't allow the norm cause you to feel like something is wrong with you because your desires may line up with something different. Because like we said, we're not judging any moms that want to stay home till their kids go to elementary school. Not at all.
That's your business.
We just ain't grace for that.
If you meet our mama, you'll know. None of us are graceful I give it up to every mom that wants to be there and is doing it, because we're going to have a mom on here soon, and she'll talk about how she's gotten creative during pandemic. My creativity I don't know where it went. I just be like, girl.
Both used to be very creative, but like it sucked the life out of us for right now. We're going to get it back.
We're going to get it back. We're going to have a whole episode about pandemic parenting. So y'all just stay tuned for real.
Yes. So thank you all for tuning in for our 6th episode of Sister Moms. We hope that you will tune in next week. Please subscribe and share.